Richard Russell, welcome back to OKRs Fast, this introduction to OKRs. In earlier videos we've been through why OKRs, what are the benefits that we're trying to get, a brief introduction to what are OKRs. So we spent some time on using OKRs and how to actually get the benefit out of this. This session we're going to talk about what an OKR cycle is, so how this fits into the sort of the calendar of your company, if you like. After this, now that we've got the background, we're then going to go on to objectives and key results in a bit more detail and then put it all together. So to start off with, I want to talk about the quarterly strategy cycle. And now that sounds awfully formal, but it'll all make sense in a moment. The idea here is that every quarter, I've used quarter just because quarter is the most common way of people doing OKRs. Some people use 2 months, some people use 6 months, some people use 4 months, some people use 12 weeks, whatever you want. You use whatever cycle you want. But in most organizations, the quarterly cycle fits into the natural rhythms of the rest of the organization. But it's also long enough for people to really get some things done and short enough to be a good time to reassess. And it creates that rhythm of which we'll be talking about in this session of reassessing where we're going. So every quarter we set some OKRs that take us in a direction towards some sort of goal, right? This is the target of what we're trying to get to, and we're trying to get this to go in this direction here. Now we're also tracking our KPIs as we go through the quarter. Why are we doing that? Well, because the next quarter we go through and we set some new OKRs, and we set them based on all this information. Like, where did we get to, and where do we actually get to? Where is our target? Where is our target now? What do we really think now? How do we go in our OKRs, and what are our KPIs telling us? So now we set some new OKRs, right? So we're setting new OKRs that take us in a slightly different direction than we had before because our targets moved a bit, because we've learned something about the market, or something happened, or we succeeded somewhere we didn't expect to succeed, or we didn't succeed somewhere we did. Whatever, it's a new quarter. Things have changed. So now we're setting some new objectives. We're still tracking mostly the same KPIs because we have operations that we're tracking, right? And then we go into the next quarter and we do the same thing again. So we reassess based on our KPIs, based on our achievement of our objectives and what we've learned about our target. Our target's moved a bit, so we set another set of OKRs that take us a bit closer to that target, right? And then the following quarter, we do it again. We take into account that information and we set this again. And, in this case here, our target's moved up a bit because we discovered that there's a new market that we can enter or whatever. And so we are able to reset on the objective that helps us to reach that. Now, what's happening here is that every cycle, you're able to go through every quarter, you're able to go through that reassessment of like, what are we trying to do and what's the best way of getting there? Now let's try and go in that direction, and we do that. Now in this session, we're going to go through how that works in a bit more detail. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about was, I alluded in the last session about assessments, about assessing people. You do still assess the OKR at the end of the cycle. So what we're doing, at the end of the cycle, we take this big board and we stick it up on the wall, we stick it on our presentation or our email or whatever it is, with here's the objectives and the key results, and we share the actual results openly at the end of the quarter. Right? So this is the objective, and this key result, we got 73%, that one we got 25%. Now I've used percentages here. If your key result was to increase, new leads from 100 to 200 per week, and you can just put the number there and say we got to 135 or we got to 215 or whatever it is, and put the number there. It doesn't have to be a percentage. You can use whatever mechanism it is you want, whatever's most natural, whatever helps people understand best. And what we're doing here is communicating this the actual results at the end of the quarter, which could be so people know where we are, where we stand, and that creates clarity so that we know why we're going the next cycle doing something different. But remember that we talked about assessing reality. So this 25% here, for example, may have been because it was an unusually ambitious goal, and we just discovered as we get stuck into it that that's unrealistic, we're not going to get there. It may be because we were trying to do something and then suddenly some sort of, viral pandemic hit and we couldn't do that and we had to do something different. Maybe it's because key staff left in the middle of it. Maybe it's because we discovered we didn't have the tools, or some other priority happened that we had to change partway through. Or maybe it's because we didn't perform very well. The point is that we don't use this to assess people. This is about just tracking how we're doing and being honest about, well, we said we we're going to do this, we said we'd try and do this, and this is how far we got. So now we focus on what we're doing next. The purpose of this, I mentioned before, is to create a rhythm, and I've got a couple of different ways of visualizing this. So this is one way of visualizing the rhythm of OKRs. We have a quarterly rhythm. We set the OKRs at the start of the quarter, and we basically say go. Now, it's not like go and hands off, it's go and hands on, right? We're involved in this ongoing work. But during that quarter, we spend some time doing focused work, and people are discussing the things that they're doing and the objectives they're trying to hit. And there's coaching going on and discussions and so on. And then we get to the end of the quarter and we stop. We don't necessarily stop work entirely, but we stop working on those OKRs and we go back to the start. And of course, at the end of it, we assess our objectives and key results and see how we did. Did we do well this quarter? Did we do what we wanted to do, right? And that rhythm of start and stop creates this natural sort of feeling of people like we're doing something new. Okay, how did we do? Did we do well? Let's celebrate that. Let's do a retrospective. Let's do a post-mortem. Let's understand how well we did and what we need to do differently going forward. And that rhythm of every 3 months doing that really creates the impetus for people to get better at what they're doing. Now, one thing that often comes up when we talk about OKRs is, do we set OKRs and then never change them through the quarter? Ideally, yes, but sometimes things happen. And when things happen, you need to make a change. And so maybe you've got a change that involves, as I said earlier on about a pandemic or a new market that opened up or a regulatory thing or a competitor did something. And then you have to change. Now, once you have the plan in place for the quarter and you're saying we're doing this, and then you have something that happens that causes you to change it, you can actually make a conscious change and say, hey, everyone, we're changing this. We're removing this objective and we're putting this one in, or we're adding this objective here, and we know that we're not going to do quite as well on the other objectives because this is super important, or whatever it is we want to do. But you're making this decision explicit, right? So there's a rhythm that goes through. You want to try and keep the rhythm, but don't let the rhythm dominate you. If you need to make a decision in the middle of it, make a decision, right? And then what's happening here is that every time you communicate this rhythm is like people have a stop, they get to reassess what's going on. In the middle, you send them on a different direction. That's fine if you have to do that. And then at the end, we stop and we go, okay, how did we do? What really happened? How do we do better going forwards? Ideally, we don't have a change in the middle. But I mean, sometimes you need to. If you're the kind of person who likes the timeline kind of view, this is a timeline. On the left here, we have the blue set in a line. We're setting our OKRs and we're aligning them. Before the start of the quarter, we do some sort of all hands to communicate them. We go through the quarter and execute. We have a review in the middle, and at the end, we have an all hands again to sort of communicate. How do we do? During the process here, we have that weekly execution cycle where we're checking in to see how we're doing at every step of the way, right? Every week to make sure we're on track. Now, this cycle fits into the next cycle like this. You do this mid-quarter review, and that feeds into setting the next ones, right? And then this all hands happens here where you're saying, well, this is how we did on the last ones. You're primarily using this to say, this is what we are going to do the next time. Because you want to keep people looking forwards. You don't want to spend a lot of time looking back. You want to say, okay, this is how we did. We did this. Everyone agrees. We understand where we missed out. Here's a little bit of a post-mortem if we need to, but we don't want to dwell on it. Let's focus on what do we do going forwards to take ourselves in progress, right? Make progress. Now, all this fits together into a quarterly rhythm that looks a bit like this, right? So you have this, each one of these lines is a cycle, and you do some work, and then you review in the middle, and you say, okay, this is what we want to do for next time. Let's communicate this in an all hands, and you have a sort of quarterly all hands that really creates a rhythm of OKR execution through the year. And it breaks the year down into 4 quarters. They're sort of understandable, plannable. People can plan for a quarter. They can't plan for a year very easily. If you need to, you can have an overriding year-long OKR, but I recommend not doing so unless you really, really need to, because it just adds a layer of complexity that isn't necessary. But you can see how these all fit together and flow. So that's how an OKR cycle works. The next session, we're going to dig into objectives and how to write objectives, and what makes a good objective, and then key results, and then we're going to bring the whole thing back together at the end. Thanks very much. If you found this presentation interesting and you'd like to see more, there is more. I have on my website all of the video trainings in one easy to access form. Under the video training, you can go to my website. It looks a bit like this, richardrussell.co/OKRs. You'll also find with the video training, when you sign up for that, there's access to PDF guides on how to use this, like cheat sheets almost. We go through a full OKR cycle, a walkthrough of what you need to do when, including some tips on how to set OKRs. There's an email newsletter which will keep you up to date with all the latest content, and including some interviews that I'll be doing with people. And you'll get access to discounted live workshops that will come through the email mailing list. So go to my website and you can get that for free, whoever you are. Now, if you're wanting a bit more, I also do OKR coaching and workshops. So I do these for organizations like whole companies or divisions or large teams for teams and for individual leaders. But we can do this whether you're already using OKRs or whether you want to start using OKRs, whether the rest of your organization is using OKRs and you want to get started, or whether you're just fresh and you'd like to learn more. The things that I do custom training customized for the organization. I do OKR setting workshops where we set OKRs with you and your team. We do OKR retrospectives, which are super useful for anyone who's already using OKRs and wants to find ways to make them better. And I do direct coaching. I do coaching of leaders. Fundamentally, to me, OKRs are really about leadership, and so that's really fits really well together. So if you're one of these and you'd like to talk about having some work done in your organization, your team, or as an individual leader, please get in contact, richardrussell.co/OKRs. Now, if you're a larger organization and you'd like to do a full OKR implementation, I do OKRs implementation and consulting. I use a method that I call FAST, the OKR FAST. The idea is that there's minimal theory. So we don't have a lot more theory than what we've already had here, but we just do have fun, engaging, relevant workshops that are hands-on, all about your business. It's not about some case study or anything like that. It's about your business. And if necessary, we can set up a custom change program with reusable videos so that we're training on the way that OKRs work in your organization, not some sort of generic way of doing things. We can do train the trainers. Whatever we need to do, we'll do it focused on your goals, because I take the OKR engagements that I do very much like what I recommend my clients do, is focus on the outcome you're trying to get and then figure out what to do. So please get in contact with me, richardrussell.co/OKRs. You'll find me on LinkedIn as well. I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks very much.